New year, new rules. Big changes to the rules for flying any of these model drones from the 1st of January 2026. No matter what model you fly, the rules are changing enormously. New registration requirements for smaller drones and new rules about where you can fly larger drones like the Air 3S or the Mavic 3. There are new remote ID requirements, new UK specific drone classifications, new rules for flying at night and new police powers to issue on-the-spot fines. As I said, no matter what drone you've got, the rules are changing for you. And despite the CAA's efforts to simplify things, there are still confusing and misleading contradictions in their drone code. So today I am breaking things down, simple summaries, so you'll know exactly how you are affected, how and where you can fly, and crucially, not lose the will to live. I'm in and I play with drones. Look, last week I put out a video for complete beginners on how to set up a new drone and how to get flying, along with a second video the other day about the new flyer ID and online theory test rules becoming mandatory for these smaller drones. Today's video, I'm going to try and cover all the main areas of all rules that affect all drone users, because all of the rules are changing no matter what drone you have. Truckloads to get through, so let's dive straight in. The most questions I'm being asked at the moment are along the lines of how are the rules going to affect me with my particular model, and what are the new remote ID requirements. So I'm going to try and go down that route. I'm going to outline some general rules, then I'll break it down by the type or model so that you know how it affects you. So first off, some general stuff. New UK class markings are coming in, similar to the EASA C markings that came in a few years ago. The idea is that all new models coming to market in the UK from 2026 onwards must have a numeric UK class mark that will then be the basis for defining the rules and limitations for that particular model drone going forwards. All the rules are centred basically on how heavy the drone is versus the proximity to flying near uninvolved people and whether or not you're in a built-up area. Now, these rules all fall under what's known as the open category, which basically means normal everyday flying that doesn't need special permission from the CAA. Now, the rules break down where you can fly into three main types of area: A1, over people; A2, near people; and A3, far from people. So let's stay with the smaller drones and see how they apply to you. I already mentioned the new rule that requires the flyer ID with the online theory test alongside the annual £12 a year operator ID. Now this applies to all drones with cameras over 100 grams, with or without a C0 or UK0 label. I'll be honest, I still don't actually get some of the rules here. I don't really understand why having a camera suddenly means you need to register and get a flyer ID. CAA rules were always about safety, not necessarily privacy. And I'm not sure why a camera drone under 100 grams is exempt either, but there we are. Look, the bottom line is if you own one of these smaller model drones, you now need to have that flyer ID, and if you haven't got one, then you need to do that now. As for all the other rules, if it is under 250 grams with or without a C0 or a UK0 label, you can still fly in most places as long as it is not near airports, prisons, restricted airspace or over crowds. Crowds are defined by the CAA as areas where people would struggle to get out of the way of a falling drone, including stadiums, shopping areas, demonstrations and marches, or crowded beaches. So no matter how small your drone is, you cannot fly it over these sorts of places, and people have been fined for doing that. You need to keep it in direct sight, and you need to keep the altitude under 400 feet or 120 meters from the ground. You only need a spotter if you are flying by FPV goggles, or if you are flying continuously by looking at the remote control screen. Glancing down to change settings is not the same as continuously flying by FPV screen, so you do not need a spotter for that, despite, again, the slightly confusing picture on the Drone Code website. As before, you can fly these smaller drones right over uninvolved people, as you can now also do with mid-sized drones as well, but I'll come back to that in a bit. But again, the CAA's Drone Code website manages to confuse things a bit. Here's this main section states you must stay at least 50 meters from people, before going on to say that there are exemptions, where further down it confirms that if you're flying one of these small C0 or C1 drones, you can fly them close to and over people. 90% of the people in the UK are flying these smaller drones. So again, I don't get why the drone code can't be clearer. Anyway, there we go, look. Bottom line is, if you are flying near people, though, you still do need to respect their privacy. You should not be looking down into people's gardens or homes. Think about it, you would not take photos from the street into somebody's home. So don't be a dickhead from overhead either, as that is only going to make the non-drone flying public hate drones even more. Just consider how it will appear to somebody on the ground. As I also mentioned in the other video for small drones, if you are flying at night, you now need a flashing green light. That means you cannot fly these two little drones, the Neo or the Neo 2, because they don't have that light built in. It doesn't have to be a navigational strobe, it's just a simple flashing light, primarily so people on the ground can see where your drone is flying. And of course, I need to mention remote ID. Highly contentious. This is where data about your flight and your location are broadcast in real time for others to pick up and view. Now, it's not something I want to get bogged down in today, because despite the near universal rejection of this in the public consultation that CAA ran earlier this year, it's still being introduced, but for now, only new models that are supporting the new UK classifications labels will have to have it. So we can talk more about the shortcomings of remote ID in another video. But to be clear, if you are flying a smaller drone with or without the C label markings, there is no remote ID requirement until January 2028. Now, more recent DJI models like the Mini 3 Pro, the 4 Pro, and the 5 Pro, and the Flip, and the Neo, they all have built-in remote ID modules that will automatically activate in 2028 when it becomes mandatory. DJI will be rolling out firmware updates to sort that out. But if you've got an older drone or a home-built drone, then the rules state you will need to attach a remote ID module by January 2028. And you need to be aware that the weight of that module may well push your drone over the 250-gram limit, which is a bit crap to say the very least, but there we are. Anyway, look, that is it for small drones. Let's do a very quick summary. You now need to have both the operator ID and the flyer ID and do that online theory test. You can still fly in most places except restricted airspaces like airports, near airports, prisons, and you still need to keep it in line of sight and under 120 meters high. And for now, no remote ID requirements at all. So, just before I move on to larger and mid-sized drones, can I just do my usual, ask you to just hit that little thumb up for me, please. Takes you a few seconds, it makes a huge difference to me and the video. So cheers, thank you very much. Right, let's get the big drones out. So these bigger models are also seeing some big changes as well. Until now, drones like the Air 3S, Mavic 3, Mavic 4, they were all relegated to open countryside, away from built-up areas and people. The big change that really benefits some of these mid-sized drones is the new rule that allows C1 classified drones to be flown in urban areas exactly the same way as a C0 or sub 250-gram drone. Yes, you heard that right. From January 2026, if your Mavic 3 or your Air 3 or Air 3S are marked with a C1 label, you can now fly them exactly the same way as you would the Mini 4 Pro or the Neo 2, i.e. in towns and cities, in what's known as the A1 and A2 categories, over or near people. Now, this is a huge deal and a massive improvement for these bigger drones. But it's not all kittens and rainbows, I'll be honest. The mighty Mavic 4 Pro, unfortunately, is just the wrong side of 900 grams for the C1 classification. So, being a C2 model, it remains relegated to A3 open countryside, far away from people, unless you have a certification known as the A2 CFC or the A2 Certificate of Competence, which I did do a video on when I completed that 5 years ago, which, kind of thinking about it, means I now need to get around to renewing that. Look, A2 CFC allows you to fly larger C2 drones like the Mavic 4 Pro in urban or built-up areas, but you still need to be 30 meters from uninvolved people. And there is also another crazy little sting in the tail for this as well, which is genuinely bonkers. The rules allowing C1 drones like the Mavic 3 and the Air 3S and the Air 3 to fly in built-up areas is only temporary. After the 2-year transition period is up, C1 drones that do not have an equivalent UK 1 class mark will be relegated back to open countryside for A3 type flights, only far away from people. So this literally means that this Air 3S is deemed unsafe one day, considered safe the next day for 2 years, and then considered unsafe again thereafter. Nothing about it has changed except the rules governing it. Now, Got to admit, I'm kind of hoping and expecting that there will be some kind of controlled additional classification rollout exercise that DJI did run for the Mini 4 Pro a year ago. But I do kind of wonder how anyone can consider this process of applying for a little sticker to add to your drone is a good way of demonstrating safety and control over drones. I mean, literally, who will be checking? How would the police know the difference between a DJI issued sticker from one from a home printer? But look, again, here I am renting, getting on with it. Look. Like smaller drones, there is no immediate remote ID requirement for existing drones that are with or without the C1 or C2 labels. So this only kicks in again in January 2028. And again, most recent models like the Air 3, the Air 3S, Mavic 3, and the Mavic 4 Pro, they've all got remote ID modules built in that will automatically kick up from January 2028. So there is nothing for you to do about remote ID for the time being. So let's recap everything for larger drones over 250 grams. You still need both the operator ID and the flyer ID, but to be clear, you only need those once, irrespective of the number of drones you own, big or small. If you have got a C1 or UK1 classified drone, then you can fly in most areas, including towns and cities. But again, you still need to stay away from airports, prisons and crowds. If your larger drone does not have a C1 label, then you cannot fly in a built-up area. So if you've got an older one like the Air 2S, I don't think that was classified, then you will not be able to fly that in more built-up areas. You still need to stay in open countryside. And that means staying at least 150 metres away from built-up areas and at least 50 metres from individual people and buildings. In all cases, with or without labels, you will still have to keep it in the line of sight, stay under 120 metres or 400 feet. And as said, until January 2028, there is no requirement for remote ID. But of course, if you buy a new model that does have a UK1 or a UK2 label, it will be broadcasting remote ID data right from the moment you activate it. And yes, as before, flying at night, you need a green flashing light. Again, not really going to be an issue because all of these drones have already got the green flashing light built in. Let's see, yes, FPV. The spotter rule still applies no matter how low you're flying. As mentioned though, if you're flying a normal camera drone and just glancing down at the screen, that does not constitute flying by FPV, so no spotter is required if you're just taking photos or changing some of the camera settings. I think that's probably about it for the larger drones. Hopefully not too long and convoluted, but if you're still a bit lost, I have often mentioned them before. Head over to Drone Scene, run by the Grey Arrows Drone Club. It not only shows you the restricted areas where you can't fly, but also loads of areas where some of the people have specifically marked as being good to fly from. They also have a brilliant little tool called Good to Go, which lets you put in your drone's model or weight and answer a few questions about where you want to fly and your proximity to people. And it will literally tell you whether or not you're good to go or not, along with some useful explainers on why you're good to fly or why you can't. So it is a really, really useful tool, and Good to Go is completely free to use. Given the confusion with the new rules, they've now made the Good to Go tool free for everybody, which I think is really, really good stuff. So check the Grey Arrows Drone Club out. As ever, I'll put a little link below. Speaking of flying clubs, some of you may have heard about Article 16 rules. Again, that lets members from a few specific flying clubs fly larger drones in built-up areas, but I'm not going to go into too much detail on this because it is aimed at flying club members flying larger drones and actually has no real advantage for smaller or mid-sized drones like the Air 3S or the Mavic 3 because they can already fly in more places than the Article 16 rules allow. So if you're a member of those clubs, you're going to kind of know what you can and can't do anyway. So I will move swiftly on to touching on commercial use as well, whether or not you're part of an organisation like an estate agent or a sole trader, maybe just doing roof inspections. The CAA website has got a good amount of information on this area and how to register and get your operator ID. You will still need a flyer ID to fly. The only other main difference for flying commercially in the UK is the need for commercial insurance. The days of the PIFCO, or the Permission for Commercial Operations, long gone, thankfully. So again, I'll drop a link below if you're after more info on that. Right, lordy, marathon video. Well, oh my lord, 20 minutes. So hopefully that's going to come down in editing. Look, hopefully this has sorted everything out for pretty much every model and every flight that you may own. It is easy to get wound up about some of the rules, and I still maintain things are hopelessly over-regulated given the actual lack of real issues that have arisen from drones. Most modern drones have got so many safety systems built in, you do kind of wonder why there's any regulations for flying under, I don't know, say 50 metres or 150 feet. CAA should be keeping airspace safe, and as far as I know, there's not a lot flying under 50 metres, so I don't know why they don't introduce more relaxed rules. There you go, I don't make up the rules, do I? Look, at least now we can fly these bigger drones in more places, so that is a huge improvement, despite the rules always seeming to change and get ever more complicated. So look, drop a comment below. I really do love reading them, and I know a lot of you have got a lot of views on this. Hopefully this video has helped you out a bit. So look, until next time, have fun and happy flying.